Have you ever noticed that on some days you wake up feeling inspired, energetic, and full of purpose, but the very next day you feel empty, tired, and disconnected from your goals? You clearly know what you should do. You understand the steps needed for success. Your mind knows the path. Yet your body feels heavy. You delay. You hesitate. Something inside quietly resists taking action, even when you want to move forward. This can feel confusing and frustrating, but here is the truth: you are not lazy, you are not weak, and you are not broken. What you are experiencing is not a lack of intelligence or willpower. It is something deeper and far more powerful than simple motivation. Most of the time, it is not your thinking brain that is in control. It is your hormones. These are invisible chemical messengers inside your body that strongly influence how focused you feel, how confident you act, how disciplined you become, and how happy or exhausted you feel each day. When these chemicals rise or fall, they silently decide whether effort feels exciting or painful, and whether discipline feels natural or almost impossible. Many people try to fix their struggles by forcing their mind. They push themselves with motivation, logic, pressure, and even self-criticism. They think harder, try harder, and blame themselves when nothing changes. But real change does not begin in the mind alone. The true power lies deeper, in the body. It lies in the chemistry that fuels the brain. When you understand and support your hormones, your mind naturally follows. This important truth is rarely taught in schools and rarely discussed openly, yet it quietly controls millions of lives. And today, you are beginning to understand it. Let us begin with the first important idea: your brain is not the boss. We like to believe that we are logical beings guided only by reason and intelligence. From a young age, we are taught that understanding something is enough. We believe that once we clearly know what is right, we will automatically do it. We tell ourselves, if I understand this well, I will change. But real life shows us something very different. For example, you already know that exercise is good for your body and mind. You know it improves health, mood, and energy. Yet knowing this does not always make you exercise. This gap between knowledge and action exists because understanding alone is not in control. The body plays a much bigger role than we realize, and learning to work with it is the key to lasting change. You already know that discipline creates success, confidence, and long-term stability. You know that staying on your phone late at night steals your sleep, weakens your focus, and drains your energy for the next day. These truths are not secret. You understand them clearly. Yet, even with this knowledge, you often do the opposite. You skip the workout. You delay the important task. You scroll again, even after promising yourself that you would stop. Over time, this creates frustration and confusion. Slowly, you begin to question yourself. You ask, what is wrong with me? You blame your mindset. You criticize your willpower. You start believing that your brain is weak or undisciplined. But the real problem is not your intelligence, and it is not a lack of understanding. The truth is simple, but uncomfortable: your brain is not the boss. Your brain does not make final decisions on its own. It does not control your behavior in the way you think it does. Instead, your brain works like a messenger. It receives signals from your body and responds to them. These signals come from hormones, powerful chemical messengers that quietly guide your emotions, energy levels, and motivation throughout the day. Hormones decide how motivated you feel when you wake up in the morning. They decide whether effort feels exciting or exhausting. They influence how stressed you become under pressure, how confident you feel around other people, and how focused you can stay when distractions appear. Your brain simply interprets these signals and creates thoughts that match them. When motivation is low, your brain creates excuses. When stress is high, your brain produces fear. When confidence drops, your brain generates doubt. This does not happen because your brain is broken. It happens because your brain is responding correctly to the chemistry inside your body. This is why forcing positive thinking often fails. You can repeat affirmations all day, but if your body signals say, "I'm tired, I'm stressed," or "I'm depleted," your brain will follow those messages. Thoughts follow chemistry, not the other way around. Understanding this changes everything. It means you are not broken. It means you are not lazy. And it means you do not need more self-criticism or pressure. What you truly need is alignment between your body and your mind. When internal signals change, behavior changes naturally. Discipline no longer feels like a constant battle. Focus stops feeling forced. And motivation begins to return, quietly, steadily, and without struggle. Change the signals in your body, and your brain will respond. Support your hormones, and your behavior will naturally follow. This is the first and most important truth of self-mastery. When you guide your internal chemistry, the mind begins to cooperate instead of resist. Now let us move to the second key idea, dopamine, the drive hormone. Many people believe that dopamine is simply the pleasure hormone. They think it exists only to make us feel happy during enjoyable moments. But this belief is incomplete and misleading. Dopamine is not about pleasure itself. It is about drive. It is the chemical force that pushes you to begin, to continue, and to pursue something meaningful. Dopamine decides whether you feel excited to start a task or feel heavy before you even try. It determines whether effort feels worth the discomfort or feels pointless and exhausting. It shapes whether your goals feel alive and inspiring or distant and empty. When dopamine works properly, action feels natural. You do not need to fight yourself. You simply move forward. When dopamine levels are balanced, life feels different. You wake up with a quiet sense of purpose, not loud excitement, but calm readiness. Small steps feel satisfying. Progress feels rewarding, even when it is slow. You stay consistent not because you force discipline, but because your brain sees value in effort. Work feels meaningful, and improvement feels possible. This is why some people appear naturally driven. It is not magic, and it is not personality. It is chemistry. However, dopamine can be hijacked. In the modern world, this happens very easily. Social media notifications, endless scrolling, junk food, instant entertainment, and quick digital rewards flood the brain with fast and cheap dopamine. These rewards require no effort, no patience, and no commitment. They feel good for a moment, but they leave damage behind. When dopamine is hijacked, the brain becomes confused. It begins to expect rewards without effort. It gets bored quickly. Deep work starts to feel painful. Long-term goals feel heavy and far away. Slowly, you begin chasing quick pleasure instead of meaningful progress. This does not happen because you are weak. It happens because your brain has been trained to avoid effort. This is why you may feel unmotivated even when you truly care about your goals. Your drive has already been spent elsewhere. Your dopamine has been burned on cheap rewards that give nothing back in return. When the brain is overloaded with constant, instant stimulation, it slowly loses the ability to respond to slow and meaningful growth. Then people begin asking themselves, why am I so unmotivated? They blame their mindset. They blame their discipline. They blame themselves. But the answer is much simpler. You did not lose your motivation, you spent it. Just like money, dopamine is limited. When you waste it on endless stimulation, there is nothing left for real progress. The brain cannot feel excited about building a future when it is exhausted by instant pleasure. This is why the solution is not more pressure and not more motivation. The real solution is restoring dopamine balance. When you reduce cheap stimulation and reconnect dopamine to effort, something powerful begins to happen. Motivation slowly returns. Focus becomes deeper and calmer. Goals start to feel alive again. Dopamine was never meant to be abused. It was designed to guide you toward growth, reward effort, and protect your drive. When you respect this system, motivation rises naturally. Now let us move to point 3, cortisol, the stress commander. Cortisol is your survival hormone. It exists to protect you. When real danger appears, cortisol sharpens your senses, increases your energy, and prepares your body to fight or run. In those moments, cortisol is a hero. It keeps you alive and gives you speed, alertness, and strength when you need them most. The problem is not cortisol itself. The problem is constant cortisol. In the modern world, danger is rarely physical. There are no wild animals chasing us. Instead, deadlines, financial pressure, social comparison, noise, notifications, and unresolved worries keep the stress system permanently switched on. Your body cannot tell the difference between a life-threatening emergency and an unanswered message. To your nervous system, stress is stress. When stress becomes chronic, cortisol stays high, and high cortisol slowly destroys balance. It creates overthinking. Your mind loops endlessly, replaying problems without solutions. You feel unable to switch off. Anxiety rises even when nothing bad is happening in the present moment. Fatigue becomes constant, not because you are doing too much, but because your body is always preparing for danger that never arrives. High cortisol also changes behavior. You crave comfort foods, sugar, and emotional eating because your body is desperate for relief. Focus becomes difficult because the brain prioritizes survival, not creativity. Long-term planning feels impossible when the mind believes it is under threat. When cortisol rules, the brain stays locked in fear mode. In fear mode, clear thinking disappears. You become reactive instead of thoughtful. You avoid risks, not because you lack ambition, but because your nervous system is trying to protect you from imagined danger. Growth stops. Learning slows. Confidence fades. This is why stressed people often struggle to move forward, even when they have talent, intelligence, and strong goals. This is not a lack of intelligence or potential. It is a biological response. A brain in survival mode cannot build the future. It can only protect the present. And the more you push yourself while under stress, the worse the situation becomes. Pressure raises cortisol. Self-criticism raises cortisol. Ignoring rest also raises cortisol. Many people unknowingly punish themselves into paralysis, believing they need to try harder, when what they truly need is calm. Calm is not weakness. Calm is power. When cortisol levels fall, the brain slowly exits fear mode. Thinking becomes clearer. Focus improves. Emotional balance returns. Courage begins to rise naturally, without force. You start taking risks again, not reckless risks, but meaningful ones. Growth becomes possible because the nervous system finally feels safe. This is why rest, breathing, silence, and recovery are not luxuries. They are biological necessities. A calm body creates a courageous mind. A regulated nervous system allows creativity, discipline, and confidence to return. You do not defeat stress by fighting it. You defeat stress by regulating it. Calm your hormones, and your body will stop sending danger signals. When the signal changes, your brain changes. And when the brain changes, your life begins to move forward again. Courage does not come from pressure. It comes from safety. Lower cortisol, and growth returns. Now let us move to point 4, serotonin, the confidence chemical. Serotonin is not loud. It does not rush through your body with excitement or thrill. It does not shout or demand attention. Serotonin is quiet power. It is a deep, steady force that creates emotional stability and inner confidence. While other hormones push you to chase or react, serotonin helps you stay grounded in who you are. Serotonin creates inner stability. It gives you emotional balance that does not depend on praise, success, or external validation. When serotonin levels are healthy, you feel comfortable in your own presence. You respect yourself without needing approval. Your emotions stay steady even when life feels uncertain. This is why serotonin is closely connected to self-respect. It helps you hold your boundaries, make calm decisions, and trust yourself. You do not feel the need to prove anything. You are not desperate to impress. You simply exist with quiet strength. When serotonin is low, the experience feels very different. Self-doubt becomes loud. You question your choices, your abilities, and your worth. Comparison begins to control your thinking. You measure yourself against others and feel behind, even when you are doing well. There is a constant feeling of not enough, as if something is missing inside you. Low serotonin is not always dramatic. Often it feels subtle and heavy. You may look fine on the outside, but inside there is tension, insecurity, and emotional fragility. Small criticism feels painful. Minor setbacks feel personal. Confidence feels unstable and easily shaken. High serotonin, on the other hand, feels calm and grounded. It creates confidence without noise. You are not overly excited, but you feel strong. You do not need constant motivation because your emotional foundation is stable. There is peace without excitement, strength without aggression, and clarity without urgency. This is the kind of confidence that lasts. Not loud, temporary confidence built on hype or adrenaline, but quiet confidence that remains even in silence. High serotonin helps you stay composed under pressure. It allows you to respond thoughtfully instead of reacting emotionally. Serotonin gives you emotional resilience, the ability to recover without breaking. Many people chase excitement, believing it will make them confident. They look for hype, stimulation, and constant validation. But excitement fades quickly, and what remains is imbalance. True confidence does not come from being stimulated. It comes from being stable. You do not need more hype. You need more balance. Serotonin reminds us that emotional strength is not about intensity. It is about regulation. When your inner state is balanced, you stop searching for external reassurance. You become less reactive to opinions and more connected to your values. This is why serotonin helps build calm leaders, not loud ones. Real leaders do not need to dominate attention. They radiate stability. Their presence feels safe. Their decisions are thoughtful. Their confidence is rooted, not forced. In a world addicted to noise, serotonin represents mastery, the ability to remain steady when others are shaken. Build balance, and confidence will follow. Now let us move to point 5, testosterone and estrogen, the action hormones. These hormones are often misunderstood. Many people believe they are only about gender, but in reality, they play a much larger role in human behavior. Testosterone and estrogen exist in everyone, regardless of gender, and they strongly influence how you act, decide, and show up in the world. These are action hormones, quiet forces that shape your energy, courage, and presence. They influence assertiveness, or how comfortable you feel expressing your needs and standing by your decisions. They affect energy levels, whether you feel strong and capable or tired and withdrawn. They shape courage, the inner push that helps you act despite fear. They also influence presence, the confidence others sense without you saying a word. When testosterone and estrogen are balanced, action feels natural. You do not overthink every decision. You move when something matters. You speak when something feels wrong. You take responsibility without forcing yourself. Balanced hormones help you set healthy boundaries, not from anger or fear, but from self-respect. You say no without guilt and yes without hesitation. When these hormones are in harmony, trust in yourself grows quietly. You feel grounded in your choices. You stop seeking constant reassurance. Your decisions feel internally supported, even when others disagree. This inner alignment creates real confidence, the kind that does not need to explain itself. But when these hormones are low or chaotic, the experience changes. You begin to hesitate, even over simple choices. Action starts to feel risky. You seek approval before moving forward, afraid of making mistakes or being judged. Fear of criticism becomes louder than your own intuition. You may know what you want, but you struggle to act on it. This is not a failure of character. It is not a lack of courage. It is chemistry out of balance. When action hormones are disrupted, the body sends signals of uncertainty, and the mind follows. When action hormones are not balanced, the brain responds by becoming cautious and defensive. You begin to doubt yourself, not because you are incapable, but because your internal system is no longer supporting bold movement. This explains why confidence can disappear suddenly, even in capable and intelligent people. A short phase of hormonal imbalance can turn decisive individuals into hesitant ones. When people do not understand this, they blame their personality. They label themselves as shy, weak, or insecure. But confidence is not personality. Confidence is chemistry. When your internal environment supports action, courage rises naturally. When it does not, fear quietly takes control. This is why true self-improvement is not about pretending to be confident. It is about creating the conditions that allow confidence to appear on its own. Balance the action hormones, and behavior begins to change. You stop waiting for permission. You stop shrinking yourself. You step forward, not aggressively, but authentically. When chemistry aligns, action follows. Now let us move to point 6, why motivation fails. Motivation speaks to the brain. It uses words, ideas, promises, and inspiration. It tells you what you should do and why it matters. Hormones, however, control the body. They decide how much energy you have, how safe you feel, and whether action feels possible or painful. This is why motivation often fails, no matter how powerful it feels in the moment. Motivation can feel strong at first. You watch a video, read a quote, or experience a moment of clarity. For a short time, you feel ready to change your life. But soon, that feeling fades. The excitement disappears. Discipline weakens. You are left wondering why you cannot stay consistent. The answer is simple. Motivation is temporary, but biology is constant. People shout at themselves, "Be disciplined." They say, "Be strong." They repeat, "Think positive." But inside the body, hormones whisper a different message. They say, "I'm tired. I'm stressed. I'm empty." And no matter how loud motivation becomes, those whispers always win. This happens because the body has the final say. When your internal system is exhausted, stressed, or depleted, your brain creates resistance. It protects you from effort, even when effort would help you. This resistance looks like procrastination, laziness, or lack of discipline. But in reality, it is self-preservation. Motivation fails because it tries to override biology instead of working with it. It demands action without restoring energy. It demands positivity without reducing stress. It demands discipline without supporting recovery. Over time, the system collapses, and motivation fades away. This is why forcing yourself rarely works in the long run. Pressure increases stress. Stress raises cortisol. High cortisol drains motivation even further. The more you push, the more resistance you create. What begins as inspiration often ends in burnout. The wiser path is different. Instead of forcing thoughts, you support your biology. You ask better questions. Not "Why am I lazy?" but "Why am I depleted?" Not "Why can't I focus?" but "What is draining my energy?" When you support the body, the mind becomes cooperative. Rest restores motivation better than pressure. Calm builds discipline better than fear. Balance creates consistency better than force. When hormones are supported, motivation becomes less necessary. Action flows naturally. Focus returns without struggle. You stop fighting yourself and start working with your system. This is real discipline, not control through force, but alignment through understanding. Motivation fails because it speaks only to the mind. Lasting change begins when you speak to the body as well. Real change succeeds when it supports the body. Fix the foundation, and consistency will follow. Now let us move to point 7, control the inputs, control the chemicals. Hormones respond to the signals you give them. Every choice you make, every habit you repeat, every environment you stay in, and every daily routine sends a message to your body about how to act, feel, and think. The good news is that you have far more control than you realize. By managing your inputs, you can influence your hormones. And when hormones are balanced, behavior, focus, and motivation naturally follow. Some inputs are simple, yet incredibly powerful. Sleep is one of the most important. Late nights and poor rest disrupt hormone cycles. They lower energy, reduce dopamine, and increase cortisol. In contrast, consistent and quality sleep restores balance, improves focus, and strengthens emotional resilience. Sunlight is another essential input. Exposure to natural light boosts serotonin, helping create calm, confidence, and emotional stability. Without enough sunlight, mood declines and motivation weakens. Even a short time outdoors can make a meaningful difference. Movement is equally important. Exercise does more than strengthen the body. It activates dopamine, the hormone of drive. Even light movement, such as a short walk or gentle workout, sends chemical signals that increase energy, sharpen focus, and make effort feel rewarding. Nutrition also plays a direct role. Processed foods and excess sugar create fast, unstable dopamine spikes that lead to imbalance. Nutrient-rich, whole foods support steady hormone function, helping the body operate smoothly and consistently. Silence and intentional breathing are often overlooked, yet they are powerful tools. Deep breathing, meditation, or quiet reflection lowers cortisol, calms the nervous system, and restores mental clarity. A few moments of stillness can reset the body more effectively than force or pressure. Purposeful activity is another critical input. Working toward a meaningful goal, project, or personal mission engages dopamine in a healthy way. Purpose aligns your internal chemistry with effort. Without purpose, even balanced hormones struggle to produce lasting motivation. These inputs may seem small, but their impact is massive. A late night may feel insignificant, yet it can trigger fatigue and stress that shape your entire day. A few minutes of morning sunlight may feel ordinary, but it can raise serotonin and stabilize your mood for hours. Small habits create subtle chemical shifts, and those shifts drive behavior. Behavior, repeated over time, shapes life. When you master these inputs, you are no longer controlled by random motivation or unstable energy. You become the architect of your internal chemistry, guiding focus, discipline, and confidence from the inside out. Control the inputs, and you control the chemicals. Control the chemicals, and life begins to move in your favor. Now let us move to point 8, discipline is a side effect. Many people believe discipline means forcing yourself to do hard things, pushing through resistance, and grinding even when you feel exhausted. But real discipline is not about constant struggle. True discipline is not forcing the brain to obey. Discipline is the natural result of removing resistance, the internal barriers that make action feel heavy. When hormones are balanced, everything changes. Motivation no longer feels like a push. It feels like a pull. You wake up with energy because dopamine supports your drive. You think clearly because cortisol is calm, not dominating your mind. You feel steady and confident because serotonin provides emotional balance. In this state, focus becomes easier. Tasks that once felt difficult begin to feel natural. Progress no longer feels like a burden. It becomes rewarding in itself. Discipline, in this sense, becomes effortless. You stop fighting yourself. You no longer need to bribe your mind with promises or punish yourself with guilt. When you align your body and mind, action begins to flow naturally. Each step feels intuitive because your internal system is supporting you instead of resisting you. This is why many people fail when they rely only on willpower. Willpower fights the body, and when the body's chemistry is out of balance, the body always wins. Pushing through fatigue, stress, or low motivation is exhausting and impossible to sustain for long. When you shift your focus to supporting your hormones through proper sleep, balanced nutrition, regular movement, sunlight, and stress management, discipline becomes automatic. You no longer struggle. You simply move. Think of it like a river. When water flows freely, boats move easily with the current. No rowing is needed. But when the river is blocked with debris, moving forward becomes a fight. Balancing your hormones removes that debris. It clears the path for consistent action and long-term discipline. Self-control is not about resistance. It is about alignment. It means creating conditions where your body and mind cooperate instead of competing with each other. When internal obstacles are removed, discipline appears on its own. It is no longer a test of strength. It becomes a natural result of living in harmony with your biology. Once you understand this, your entire approach to personal growth changes. Discipline stops feeling like punishment. Progress stops feeling like struggle. Success no longer feels like a battle. You learn to flow instead of fight. True self-control is not pushing harder. It is balancing the system so effort feels light and consistency feels natural. When hormones are aligned, you do not force discipline, it simply happens. Now let us move to point 9. Emotional control comes from the body. Many people believe emotions can be controlled through thinking alone. They are told to calm down, think positively, or focus on logic. While these ideas sound reasonable, they often fail in real life. That is because emotions are not created by thoughts. They are chemical reactions inside the body. Anxiety, stress, sadness, and anger begin in the hormones and the nervous system, not in conscious reasoning. Cortisol rises when the body senses danger. Adrenaline increases when you feel threatened. Serotonin and dopamine shift based on your environment, habits, and daily inputs. The brain is not malfunctioning, it is accurately responding to the signals it receives from the body. Trying to think your way out of strong emotions is like trying to stop a storm by wishing it away. Logic alone cannot calm a chemical reaction. This is why true emotional control starts with the body, not the mind. You cannot outthink fear, but you can regulate your nervous system to reduce its intensity. Deep breathing, grounding exercises, meditation, physical movement, and calm posture send a powerful signal of safety to the body. When the body senses safety, hormone levels begin to adjust. As chemistry changes, emotions naturally stabilize. Calm returns not because you forced it, but because your system finally feels secure. The principle is simple: a calm body creates a calm mind. When your nervous system is regulated, your thoughts naturally follow. You think more clearly. You make better decisions. You respond instead of reacting. Panic begins to fade. Stress becomes manageable. Confidence slowly returns. Emotional resilience stops feeling like a struggle and becomes your natural state. This understanding changes the way we see self-control. You are not weak for feeling emotions. You are not failing when emotions arise. You are simply responding to signals from your body. Emotions are not mistakes. They are messages. When you support the system that creates them, balance returns on its own. By calming the body first, the mind aligns automatically. This is why top performers, from athletes to CEOs, use this principle every day. They do not rely only on positive thinking. They focus on physiology. Steady breathing. Strong posture. Deliberate movement. Consistent routines. These simple physical inputs regulate hormones and calm the nervous system. This creates an emotional foundation that supports focus, resilience, and clear thinking under pressure. Emotional mastery is not about suppression or denial. It is about regulation. When you learn to regulate the body, the mind follows. Anxiety decreases. Stress becomes easier to handle. Confidence becomes stable and sustainable. You stop reacting impulsively and begin responding thoughtfully. Emotional control always begins with the body. Calm your physiology, and your mind will settle naturally. Now we come to point 10, the power shift. The most powerful change begins when you stop blaming your mind and start supporting your body. For years, people have been taught that procrastination, lack of focus, or failure comes from weak thinking or poor character. So they push harder. They think more. They demand motivation that never lasts. But the real problem is rarely the mind. It is the body. When you focus on aligning your hormones and calming your nervous system, everything changes. You stop feeling broken. You stop forcing motivation that disappears after a few hours. You stop fighting yourself as if discipline is a battle. Instead, energy returns. Action becomes natural. Clarity appears without effort. You begin to see that your brain is not your enemy. It is your ally. When you support your body with rest, proper nutrition, movement, sunlight, and meaningful purpose, you create the internal conditions for focus, courage, and confidence. Daily life starts to feel lighter. Tasks become manageable. Progress feels rewarding. Consistency flows without struggle. This is the real power shift. Control moves from frustration and force to harmony and support. You are no longer at war with yourself. You are working with the system that drives you. And in this state, growth, motivation, and discipline are no longer problems to solve. They are natural results of alignment. Now for the final truth. Master the source. Your brain is powerful, but it is not independent. It listens to your hormones. It follows the chemistry of your body. The thoughts you struggle with, the focus you lose, and the motivation you chase are all shaped by these invisible forces. Stop fighting your mind. Start mastering the source. Sleep deeply. Move daily. Eat intentionally. Breathe slowly. Choose purpose over cheap pleasure. When you guide your hormones, your brain stops resisting and starts supporting you. It becomes your partner, not your opponent. You were never weak. You were simply out of balance. And when balance is restored, everything changes. Focus returns. Confidence stabilizes. Discipline flows naturally. Life becomes aligned, calm, and full of possibility. Control the source, and your mind, your actions, and your life will follow.